Hi and welcome to another episode of the DM's Corner. Today I wanted to talk about my way of letting the players own the story. Now, if you are, if you know me, you know that I'm mostly running, published adventures. I don't write my own adventures or have my own campaign world, and because of a simple reason, I don't have a lot of time. So I usually like to take an adventure and simply run it to my players. But in order to let the players feel like they own the story, they are the center of the story, and I want to not be restricted by what those books say about the adventure. I have my own method of let's say inflating the story to make the players actually more important, if you will, or have their roles to be more substantial to the story and adventure. And what I basically do is, after I read the book, I find places and locations that are presented in a bare bone sort of a way, and then I inflate them. And how do I do that? So I have like three main methods of thinking about the next session within my campaigns. So first of all, I don't think about encounters at all. I think about scenes, and the definition of scene is simply a piece of action that occurs in a specific location in a specific time. So my notes, if you will, and I've presented them several times in the previous DM Corner videos, are basically one sheet of events that should take place during the session. So by simply thinking about scenes and not encounters, and not maps with numbers in them, and when the players get to this room, this is what happens, and when the players get to that room, that's what's happening. It kind of clears everything and let me focus on the story itself and on things that are interesting. So, for example, I've prepared this very small scene that to show an example of how I'm thinking about it. So let's assume that the players have set an appointment with one of the city officials, let's say a magister, and they are supposed to talk to him, and he is supposed to give them something to do, like a paid job. So the scene that I've constructed goes as follows. So as they enter the magister's office, they see a noble lady storming out of the office and telling him, the magister, this is not over. And then she leaves. As she leaves, I will let one of the players note that, as she exits the office and heads towards the street, someone, a stranger, basically looks at her and starts to follow her. And then when I say that, I tell the players, the magister kind of waves for you to come in. So as the players come into the office, the magister basically wants to present them with what he needs them to do. So this is a very, very simple scene, but kind of built into it are a lot of kind of small mysteries, and obviously, or at least I hope that the players will have a lot of questions in their head. For example, who is this lady? Why is she angry? Who is the one following her? Does she know that someone is following her? Does the magister know that someone is following her? So as you can see, it's very open-ended, and it can go in a lot of ways. For example, the players might simply ignore all that and ask the magister, yes, what do you want? And then he can present them whatever he wants them to do. In this scene, in this case, he will tell them, listen, I have two lawyers of two different guilds that meet to sign a trade treaty between those two guilds. For example, I need you to secure that meeting. Or they might tell the Magister, listen, wait, we want to see what's happening with this lady. And maybe they will follow whoever follows her. And, who knows what they'll find there. And maybe they'll simply enter the Magister office and ask him, hey, listen, what's going on? And he might tell them, listen, this is Lady Valencia, and she's looking for her missing son. And she offered me a lot of gold to basically take the city's watch, and make them search for him. But I can't do that. This is, not my jurisdiction, or whatever. So all I'm trying to say is that a simple scene can basically lead to a lot of questions and to a lot of courses of action. And I think this is the main thing that I'm really interested about. I'm trying to build situations and build scenes that are as open-ended as possible without being like way over there. So I basically want to present a situation, and I want to allow the players to respond to it in whatever way they want to. So if this was like a book, then the Magister should have given them a mission, and they should accept it and do the mission. And after they finish the mission, they find leads to the other mission, and maybe the Magister sends them to another place. It's very linear. But when presenting scenes like the one that I've just described, makes the players feel like this is a living world. Things happen that aren't necessarily connected to what they're doing right now, and they have the choice. They can, if they want, tell to the Magister, listen, you're not interesting. This is way more interesting, and follow this lady and see what happens. Now, obviously, it makes me as the DM think a lot more, and I need to be prepared for the situation in which the players kind of turn and follow this lady. So obviously, I do have something prepared, but again, I don't have the lady's mansion mapped out, and I don't have the rooms ordered, and all I have is scenes and kind of branches that go from those scenes. So I told you that I'm thinking about scenes, not encounters. The immediate follow-up is that I'm thinking about characters and not about monsters. So even if the players are kind of investigating a goblin lair, I will probably not worry too much about constructing like the correct number of goblins. So like building an encounter and placing the correct number of goblins and traps here and there and whatever. I'm mostly interested in what's happening within this goblin lair. If I'll continue my example with this lady, let's assume that the players are like in a T section here, right? They need to choose if they continue to talk with the Magister, or maybe they branch and go to talk about or to talk with this lady and maybe follow her and see what's going on. So instead of building two scenes, one in which they talk to the Magister and one in which they talk to the lady, I simply write a very short summary of the characters, the Magister character and the lady's character. And the way I do that is I break each character to 3 parts. So the first part is the agenda. What is this character trying to do? And I'm talking about like short-term agenda. So for example, the Magister is all about making sure that those 2 guild lawyers meet and the treaty is signed. For the lady, maybe she is trying to find her son. So these are the 2 agendas. Great. Then I go about and maybe describe in a sentence or 2 just the behavior of both the Magister and the lady. So the lady might be arrogant and looking down to everyone, and the Magister maybe is like a man that has a lot of weight on his shoulders, so he's acting appropriately. And then I also give each of the NPCs or the characters a secret. So for example, the secret that I have designed for the Magister is that he's trying to hide a vampire infestation in the city. In the sewers, the City Watch found, corpses drained out of blood, and he's trying to hide it until he can contain the situation and solve it, because he don't want mass panic. What the lady is trying to hide, or her secret, is that her son is actually a vampire. He was bitten by a vampire, and she's trying to cure him, and she's willing to pay everything she has to find a cure. So you can see right now that those two arcs basically connect, right? The character, the Magister character, and the lady's character have this thread that connects the two of them, which is the vampire infestation. The lady's son is a vampire or a vampire spawn, and the Magister is trying to fight that. So who is the man following the lady? So here, for example, I simply created a character of a paladin who is in an undercover mission to eradicate like a specific vampire, or to eliminate a specific vampire. And this paladin basically managed to connect several dots, and he thinks that the lady's son, who was bitten by that vampire that the paladin is trying to kill, can lead him to that vampire. So maybe it's like a little bit of a mess, but it's like a web of dots that the players can slowly connect if they choose to. And again, I'm doing this whole thing within the context of a published adventure that has nothing to do with the story that I'm telling you right now. So, and this is simply an example, right? I can take an adventure, find like a city that the players should visit on their way to another location, and take this to kind of expand a little bit the view of the world, and present some interesting choices, and present a story that's going on behind those choices. Now, I do realize that the players can ignore all of it. They might bypass the city. They might tell the Magister, listen, we're not interested. We just want to rest a little bit and continue to our destination. But the whole point of the game, in my opinion, is to make it interesting, make it fun. And if the players want to simply run through an adventure, they don't want role playing, they don't want big stories, they simply want to go in a room, kill the monster, and take the treasure, fine, I won't do any of it. But if they are looking for things beyond that, then this method is a great way to actually present the world to them and allow them to make interesting choices. And think about it this way: what if the players somehow, if they interact with everything that I've written so far, are caught between the mother, the noble woman who wants to cure her vampire son, to the paladin who wants to kill it? So this is like a conflict or a drama that I can create if the situation allows for it, to basically invert good and evil. So the paladin, who is classically a good figure in the world, is here to kill this young man who is the son of a noble lady, and she's all about protecting him and curing him. So if the characters, or if the players follow the thread or the points that I've scattered and connect the dots, they might find themselves kind of between the hammer and the hard place. And we can choose who is the bad guy here. Is it the paladin who is all about killing the vampire, he doesn't care about consequences? Or is the bad, like the villain here, is the mother who wants her son alive, or maybe at least not dead, but not killed by the paladin? Maybe she will pay someone to kill the paladin if the heroes kind of reveal that this is what's going on to her. So as you can see, a very small scene 3 or 4 characters with some agenda and a secret or two can create like sessions worth of interesting interaction. And maybe eventually, yes, there will be a vampire lair involved. Yes, maybe there will be a mansion to explore, but this is like in the background. I don't actually sit and write all this stuff. I focus on a scene, I focus on characters, and I focus on giving enough hooks for the players to interact them and kind of lure them into the story that I've built. And all of this is done within the context of a published adventure that already have a lot of information and things going in there. So I use this method whenever I want to let the players maybe rest a little bit from the main story that they are kind of following, and as a way to make them own the story, make them make choices that might take them to different places and meet different people, and put them in very specific situations that are interesting to resolve. One thing that you should be aware if you try to embrace that and do that is that it makes published adventures last a lot longer than intended. And Curse of Strahd, Storm King's Thunder, Out of the Abyss are like mammoth. These are big adventures, and if you actually do what I just presented with those adventures, these can last for years. So you need to be aware that doing this is going to make your sessions longer. It will take a lot more time to resolve story points, original story points as in within the module. It will take longer to resolve them, and it will also make you work a little bit harder on making sure that the players are aware of the bigger story while they are pursuing those little stories in between. To me, it's like a lot more interesting, and I can always present choices and interesting options to my players. So if like the main story is not interesting enough or doesn't have like the elements that they seek, maybe one of these stories will reveal to me what they are really into, and then I can move the story as needs be. So think scenes, think about characters, give each character an agenda and a secret, and spread hooks that basically can lure the players into the story and have them connect the dots to understand what's going on, and what is the story that lies just behind the story that they are aware of. In my opinion, it makes the world, this virtual world or fantasy world that we are playing in a lot more real, and in this way the players feel like they are the focus of the story. Their choices actually affect the story, and this isn't some train that is positioned on rails that is driving. Is no matter what the players do, this is how things go. So in my opinion, it's a great way to simply hand the stick, hand the wheel to the players, and see what happens. It might surprise you, as it surprises me a lot of the times, and this is part of the fun for me. So I hope you enjoyed this small video. Let me know if you did in the comments, and until the next time, bye bye.